Welcome to Shatter.
Support the channel by liking, commenting, and subscribing. I promise even more interesting stories. Disappear. That's what you're good at, isn't it? She didn't shout it. She didn't even sound angry. She said it like she was reading a grocery list. Calm, casual, final. Then she turned away and kept scrolling through her phone. I stood there in the kitchen, holding the coffee mug I'd just poured for her, and realized something I should have understood years ago. I was no longer part of her world. I was just furniture. I didn't argue. I didn't ask why. I didn't remind her of the years I'd been the one keeping our lives stitched together. I simply set the mug down, turned, and walked out of the room. That was the last morning we shared under the same roof. There was no fight, no slammed door. I left as if I were just stepping out for an errand. But I didn't come back. In the weeks before that moment, I had quietly prepared for this exact scenario. Bank accounts separated, important documents moved, a small apartment rented in another city under my name alone. She didn't see it coming. People like her never do. They believe they'll always have the last word, that the other person will beg, bargain, or at least leave a door open. But when I left, I welded that door shut behind me. In those first months, I made no attempt to contact her. I changed my number, deleted my social media, and cut off the mutual friends who couldn't respect boundaries. I rebuilt my life from the ground up. New job, new routines, new circles. I stopped checking the mirror for the man she used to dismantle piece by piece. Years passed. 5, to be exact. In that time, she became nothing more than a closed chapter, a faint outline in my memory. I never looked her up. I never wondered what she was doing. She was simply gone. Until one night, when I walked into a crowded charity gala in the city where I now lived. It was a work thing, not a place I expected ghosts to appear. But across the room, standing near the bar in a navy dress, was the woman who had told me to disappear. Her hair was shorter. There were lines around her eyes that hadn't been there before. But the moment she saw me, her face drained of color. She didn't just freeze, she staggered back, hand gripping the bar for support. And then, in front of everyone, she collapsed. The room rushed toward her. I didn't. I just stood there, watching the chaos unfold, wondering if this was the first time in her life she truly understood the weight of her own words. Because 5 years ago, she told me to disappear. And I had done exactly that. The moment she hit the floor, the noise in the room shifted. Conversations stopped. Glasses clinked on tables. A couple of people rushed toward her, calling for water, for a medic, for anything. I stayed where I was, one hand in my pocket, the other loosely holding my drink. My colleagues glanced at me, then back at the scene, not realizing they were watching two people whose history was carved in silence, not in words. She was conscious again within a minute. Someone helped her into a chair. Her eyes kept darting around the room until they locked on me. I didn't look away. There it was, the recognition. And something else. Not anger. Not even shame. It was the look of someone who just remembered the thing they thought they'd buried. I turned and walked toward the balcony, leaving her with the people fanning her and asking if she was okay. Outside, the air was sharp and cold. The city spread out below, unfamiliar and clean, a life she had never touched. When I first left her 5 years ago, I didn't plan on erasing myself so completely. But the more I built my new life, the more I realized I didn't want a single thread leading back to her. I moved states. I changed industries. I went from someone who planned every day around another person's moods to someone who could decide, at a moment's notice, to disappear for a week without telling a soul. And in that freedom, I had no reason to think about her. Until now. I stayed outside until I heard the click of heels on stone. She had followed me out. Her voice was quieter than I remembered. "It's really you." I didn't answer. She took a step closer. "You look different." I did. Not just older, not just healthier. I looked like a man who had stopped carrying someone else's weight. She hesitated, searching for an opening, maybe expecting a question, an insult, anything that would prove I still had an emotional stake in this conversation. But there was nothing for her to work with. "I didn't think I'd ever see you again," she said. "You weren't supposed to." I replied, my tone even. That landed. I could see it in the way her lips parted slightly, like she was about to argue, then thought better of it. For a moment, the only sound was the wind. Then someone called her name from inside. She glanced back toward the room, then at me again. I need to talk to you, she said. I turned away from her and looked over the city lights. No, you need to listen. Her face shifted. She hadn't expected that. And for the first time in 5 years, I realized I wasn't here by accident. I was here because it was time. She didn't move at first. I could feel her standing there, weighing whether to push or retreat. 5 years ago, she would have pushed, loudly, aggressively, without fear of breaking something between us. But now, there was nothing left to break. I don't know where to start, she said finally. I didn't look at her. That's not my problem. That hit harder than I expected. Her breath caught just slightly, like someone adjusting to cold air. She wasn't used to this version of me, the one who didn't soften his words for her comfort. 5 years is a long time to live with silence. I learned to fill mine with better things. Early mornings that belonged only to me, work that didn't leave me drained, friendships built on trust instead of obligation. But I also learned something else. Silence has weight, and if you carry it long enough, it stops feeling heavy. I wasn't here to reopen old wounds. I was here because life had put us in the same place, and I wanted her to see, really see, what disappearing looked like when you did it right. She tried again. I was wrong. I gave a small shrug. You were many things. Her eyes narrowed just slightly. She was trying to read me, to find any trace of the man she used to pull apart with a single sentence. But I'd buried that man so deep, even I couldn't find him anymore. Did you hate me? She asked. I finally turned toward her. No, I stopped thinking about you before I had the chance. That was the truth. Hatred still requires energy. I had cut the current completely. She looked like she wanted to argue, to demand details, to ask if there had been someone else. But instead, she just stood there, as if realizing for the first time that she no longer had the right to any answers. From inside, someone called my name, my new name in this new life. She noticed it, the way her head tilted slightly. That's not the name you used to go by, she said. It's the one I chose, I replied. That, more than anything, seemed to unsettle her. Because it wasn't just that I'd disappeared from her life. I'd erased the version of myself that had ever belonged to her. The wind picked up, carrying the faint sound of laughter from inside. I glanced toward the doors. Enjoy your evening, I said, and stepped past her. I didn't look back. And from the silence that followed, I knew she finally understood. I hadn't left to punish her. I had left to become someone she could never find again. I left her standing on that balcony, framed by the city lights, looking like someone who'd just seen a ghost. And in a way, she had. Inside, the gala carried on as if nothing had happened. I moved through the room, shaking hands, exchanging small talk, smiling when necessary. On the surface, I was just another guest. But every so often, I caught a glimpse of her across the room, still watching, still trying to piece together the version of me she couldn't recognize. That used to be her talent, knowing exactly where to press to get the reaction she wanted. Back then, she could get under my skin with a single offhand comment. Now, she couldn't even find the skin. Later in the evening, when the event began to wind down, I stepped outside to call a car. My phone, my life, even the way I carried myself, none of it connected to the man she had once told to disappear. That was deliberate. Every step I took away from her all those years ago had been intentional, calculated, and permanent. But she followed me again. This time, her expression was different, less shock, more desperation. Please, she said, stopping a few feet away. Can we just talk? 5 minutes. I could have said no. I should have said no. But something in me wanted to hear what she thought 5 years of silence could be bridged with. I nodded once. 5 minutes. She stepped closer, lowering her voice like the night could be listening. I was angry. I said things I didn't mean. You meant them, I said calmly. You just didn't think I'd act on them. She flinched. Not because of the words, but because of how flatly I delivered them. No heat, no bitterness, just truth. I didn't think you'd actually leave, she admitted. That's the problem, I replied. You thought I'd stay no matter what. She looked down, and for a second, I saw the weight of those years hit her. Whatever she had expected life to be after I vanished, it hadn't turned out that way. But I wasn't here to hear her regrets. I was here to make sure she understood the reality she'd created. You told me to disappear, I said, stepping back as my car pulled up. So I did. And when I walked away, I didn't take a single piece of you with me." Her lips parted like she wanted to say something, but I was already moving toward the car. As I slid inside, I saw her still standing there, framed by the glow of the streetlights, holding 5 years' worth of silence in her hands. And I knew she'd never be able to put it down. The car pulled away from the curb, and I didn't look back. I didn't need to. That image, her frozen under the streetlights, wasn't something that would fade. It was a bookmark in a story I'd already stopped reading. The city slipped past my window, neon and shadow trading places in the glass. My phone buzzed twice in my pocket. I didn't check it. I already knew it was her. After 5 years of nothing, she suddenly had a lot to say. Back at my place, I poured a drink, sat in the dark, and let the silence settle. The thing about absence is, it's not just emptiness, it's a presence all its own. Mine had lived rent-free in her life for half a decade. Now, seeing me again, that absence had become unbearable for her. And I knew exactly why. People like her don't fear losing you. They fear losing their place in your story. They want to know they can still step in, say the right thing, and pull you back into orbit. That night on the balcony had told her the truth. She wasn't in my orbit anymore. The next morning, I checked my phone. 3 missed calls. 1 text. "We should meet. There's more I need to say." I didn't answer. By noon, another message came. This one longer, spilling over with half apologies and nostalgic references to a life she had long since dismantled. I recognized the tactic. Make the past sound softer, blur the edges, and hope I'd start to miss it. But I didn't. I remembered it clearly, exactly as it was. Over the next week, I went about my life as if the gala had never happened. Meetings, gym, quiet evenings at home. But she kept slipping in, emails from an old address, messages through mutual acquaintances, even a handwritten note left at my building's front desk. She was careful, not desperate, but I could see where it was heading. One night, as I was leaving the gym, I spotted her car parked across the street. She wasn't subtle. She wanted to be seen. I walked past without acknowledging her, unlocked my own car, and drove off. In the rearview mirror, her headlights stayed off. It wasn't anger that kept me from engaging. It was clarity. She wasn't reaching out to fix what had been broken. She was reaching out to confirm she still mattered. And if I gave her that, even for a second, I'd be giving back everything I'd taken from her the night I walked away. She had told me to disappear. I had. And now she was learning the cruelest part of that wish. Sometimes, you get exactly what you ask for. That lesson was only just beginning for her. And I was in no hurry to end it. Her persistence didn't fade, it evolved. By the second week, she'd stopped sending outright invitations and started weaving herself into my periphery instead. Friends I hadn't heard from in months suddenly wanted to catch up, and every one of them just happened to mention her name in passing. I knew what she was doing. She wanted proximity without vulnerability, getting close enough to gauge my reaction without risking outright rejection. But I played that game before, and I knew how it ended. One evening, I left my office late. The streets were quiet, the kind of winter night where even the city seems to move slower. As I rounded the corner to my building, I saw her. Not waiting at the door, too obvious, but standing just far enough away to make it look coincidental. She was talking to someone, laughing a little too loudly, the kind of laugh meant to be overheard. I didn't break stride. Walked past her, keycard in hand, no acknowledgement. I could feel her pause mid-sentence as I stepped into the lobby. The doors closed behind me, and with them, the air between us stayed cold. That night, she sent a single text. "We keep running into each other. Feels like fate." I left it unread. Fate had nothing to do with it. This was choreography. What she didn't know was that I'd been preparing for this phase from the moment I saw her at the gala. The most dangerous thing you can give someone like her is an opening, even a small one. They can turn a single conversation into a door you never meant to open. I wasn't giving her that. Instead, I started redirecting my routines, different gym times, altered routes home, new places for lunch. Not to avoid her, but to make sure every chance meeting failed before it began. If she wanted to see me, she'd have to do it deliberately. And the more deliberate she became, the more obvious it would be that I was no longer part of her world. A week later, I heard from a mutual friend that she'd been asking questions. Where I worked now. If I was seeing anyone. If I ever talked about her. I didn't. And that silence was driving her deeper into the one thing she couldn't stand: uncertainty. That's the thing about people who build their control on knowing you inside and out. When they lose the map, they panic. And panic leads to mistakes. I knew her next move would be bolder. She'd want direct contact. She'd need to break the stalemate. And when she did, I'd be ready. Because this wasn't just about keeping her out. It was about making sure she finally understood, once and for all, that there was no way back in. It happened on a Thursday night. I'd just finished a late meeting and was walking through the nearly empty parking garage when I heard footsteps behind me. Not rushed, not hesitant, just steady enough to make me turn. She was there. No pretense this time. No carefully staged coincidence. She was holding a paper cup of coffee like it could disguise the fact she'd been waiting. "Can we please talk?" she asked. Not the casual tone she used to hide behind. This was different, tight, deliberate, with a current of something I hadn't heard from her in years. I stopped, not out of curiosity, but to make it clear I wasn't avoiding her out of fear. She took that as permission and stepped closer. "I don't want things to end like this," she said. "They ended a long time ago," I replied. My voice didn't rise, didn't soften. It was the same tone I'd use with a stranger asking for directions. She swallowed hard, her fingers tightening around the cup. "I made mistakes. I didn't see what I was doing until you were gone." I didn't smile. I didn't nod. I just let the silence stretch until it started to feel heavy in the air between us. She hated silence when she wasn't the one controlling it. Then came the part I'd been expecting. "Is there someone else?" I held her gaze for a beat too long, then said, "There's a lot you don't know." I saw it land, the way her breathing hitched, the flicker in her eyes. I didn't confirm. I didn't deny. Ambiguity is more powerful than either. She looked away first. I thought we had time." "That was your first mistake," I said. "You thought time was yours to spend." I turned to leave, but not quickly. She needed to see that I wasn't walking away to hurt her. I was just done standing still. In the elevator, I caught my reflection in the mirrored walls. Calm, composed, untouched by the chaos she'd been trying to pull me back into. By the time the doors opened to the lobby, I knew what her next step would be. She'd try harder, push boundaries, force situations. Because the truth she'd never admit, even to herself, was that she didn't want me back. She wanted the control she lost, and I was going to make sure she never got it again. The next move was hers, but it came faster than I expected. 3 days later, I walked into a cafe on the other side of town, a place I'd never taken her, and she was already there. She didn't look surprised to see me. That meant she'd either followed me or had someone do it for her. She was seated at a corner table, 2 coffees already on the table, like this was a meeting I'd agreed to. I considered turning around, but walking out would have given her too much satisfaction. So I sat. She leaned forward, trying to close the distance, her voice soft but urgent. "You've changed." "That was the point," I said. Her eyes flickered with frustration. "No, you've built walls. I'm just asking for a way back in." I stirred the coffee but didn't drink it. "You don't want back in. You just don't like being locked out." The truth hit her harder than she wanted to show. She shifted in her seat, forcing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "You don't have to be so cold." "I'm not cold," I replied. "I'm finished." She sat back, crossing her arms like she could shield herself from the impact. But her next words betrayed the real motive. "I've been thinking about us, about what we could still have. What we had was built on you deciding when I mattered," I said. "Now I decide, and you don't." Silence again. This time, she didn't fill it. She just studied me like she was trying to find the man she used to bend with a few well-placed words. But that man was gone. After a long pause, she tried one last angle. "You don't have to make it like this. We could fix it." "There's nothing to fix," I said, standing. "There's just what's left, and you're not in it." I walked out without touching the coffee. Through the window, I could see her still sitting there, staring at the empty space I'd left. That's when I realized the real power wasn't in leaving. It was in showing her, over and over, that she couldn't pull me back, no matter what she tried. And she was running out of moves. After the cafe, her efforts shifted from subtle to relentless. It started with accidental run-ins, outside my building, near my gym, even in the lobby of my office. Each time, she'd play it off like fate, but the timing was too precise to be coincidence. One evening, I left work late and found her leaning against my car. She didn't move when I approached. "We need to talk," she said. "No," I answered, unlocking the door. "You need to listen." Her expression tightened. "I've been listening for weeks. All I hear is you shutting me out." "That's because the conversation ended years ago," I told her. She followed me as I walked to the driver's side. "It doesn't have to end. We can rebuild." I cut her off. "You can't rebuild what you burned down," and walked away from. "Not with me." For a moment, she didn't speak. Her breathing changed, slower, heavier. "You're really not coming back, are you?" "I left a long time ago," I said, getting into the car. "You're just catching up." I drove off without looking in the mirror. The next few days, she tried a different tactic. Messages. Not the pleading ones anymore. These were crafted for impact. Little reminders of our past. A photo of us at a beach years ago. A screenshot of an old text where I told her she was the only home I'd ever need. No demands, just ghosts. I didn't respond. Each one stayed unread, even though I saw them the moment they came through. Silence wasn't just my shield. It was the sharpest blade I had left. By the end of the week, the messages stopped again. And that's when I knew she was done pretending to be subtle. I came home one night to find her waiting outside my building. Not dressed up, not composed, just raw. The way people look when they've run out of strategies. She stepped forward when she saw me, blocking the entrance. "Just tell me why," she said. I met her eyes. "Because you thought you could decide when I mattered. And the day you said I didn't, you taught me how to live without you." She swallowed hard, her gaze breaking for the first time. And then, quietly, "I didn't think you'd actually learn." I walked past her without a word. Inside, in the silence of my apartment, I realized something. This wasn't just about ending it. It was about making sure she understood that the door she kept reaching for had been locked from my side. And no matter how long she stood there, it wasn't going to open again. The night after she blocked my way outside my building, I expected her to be gone from my life for good. But people like her don't walk away clean. They linger, testing every lock, looking for one they forgot to close. For days, she didn't call, didn't text. The silence should have felt final, but it didn't. It felt like a pause, a calculated one. I'd seen her do this before with others. Withdraw just long enough to make her reappearance seem urgent. It came on a Saturday morning. I was at the farmer's market, coffee in hand, when I heard her voice behind me. Calm, casual, like we were running into each other by chance. "You look good." I didn't turn immediately. I wanted her to feel the weight of waiting for my reaction. When I finally faced her, I gave the smallest nod. "I know." That caught her off guard. She tried to recover, asking if I had time to just walk and talk. I told her I was busy. I didn't lie. My time was busy with my own life now, and she wasn't part of it. She followed me anyway, weaving small pieces of our history into the conversation like breadcrumbs she thought I might follow back. I didn't. I let her speak, and when she finished, I simply said, "That was another lifetime." Something shifted in her then. Not anger, not sadness, resignation. The realization that no matter what she said, she couldn't rewrite what had already been erased. We reached the end of the street, and I stopped. "This is where I go one way and you go another," I said. She searched my face for any sign of hesitation. There wasn't any. After a long pause, she nodded and stepped back. "I guess this is it," she said softly. "It's been it for years," I replied. I walked away without looking back. I didn't need to. I knew she was standing there, just like she had on that balcony months earlier, holding silence she could no longer control. And as I turned the corner, the weight I'd carried for so long was gone completely. Not because I'd gotten closure from her, but because I had given myself the ending I needed. People think closure is a conversation, an agreement, some mutual understanding. But sometimes, closure is simply living a life they can't touch, in a place they can't follow. She once told me I'd get intimacy when she felt like it. In the end, I gave her nothing when I didn't feel like it. And the difference between us? I never looked back to see if she was still waiting. What would you have done in my place? If the story hit you, leave a like. And don't forget to subscribe. It only gets stronger from here.